What's up, guys? Doomwake here, and welcome back to another video on the channel. And as you can see, we have a huge announcement, and I wanted to give you guys my live reaction. Literally have been refreshing this page for the last 5 minutes or so, just awaiting the inevitable announcement, and we have it. And I think there's a lot of different ways they can go with this. You know, we've had a lot of conversations over the past week. I think we can all safely assume that the bird is going to get the axe, but what happens to Pioneer? Is there anything else that happens in Modern besides Nadu? What happens in Legacy? There's been a lot of talk about Grief and Psychic Frog, and all of that conversation is leading up to today, and I'm very, very excited to take a look and see what we have here. Let's just get into it. I'm gonna try to use this scroll wheel to try to slow roll it just a little bit. Okay, maybe I shouldn't go that slow. All right, announcement date August 26th, 2024. Here we go. Standard. I think we can all assume no changes, but we'll just let it go. Yeah, there we go. Standard, no changes. Just a quick note on Standard. I've been saying this over the past couple of weeks. Standard is the best format right now. You know, with all the problems that Modern, Pioneer, Legacy have, I've been having a blast playing Standard. They just need to give us a little bit more reason to, and it's possible that this new Spotlight series is that particular reason. So, yeah, no changes to Standard. No, that was pretty much expected, but let's see, kind of continue on here. I love that the slow reveal is great. Okay, Pioneer. Here we go. What do we want to see? Okay, so my expectation, well, I shouldn't say my expectation. My wish list for Pioneer would be Sorin, Amalia, and something from Phoenix. I don't know if that's Picklock, Cruz, but I think we need to kind of hit the first 3 decks and maybe even at that point address Mono Green. I've had a lot of people, like a lot of you guys in the comments section have been like, oh, Doomwake, what if you hit these 3 decks? Then Mono Green just becomes too good, and I sympathize with that, but a lot of different ways they can go with Pioneer, so let's see what they have decided to do. It's about time. Amalia has been removed from the Pioneer format. 07s down in the comments section down below, but I am a huge fan of this change. I've been talking about this for a while. Amalia is, for tournament logistics, very, very bad. There's a lot of draws that are involved, and just the deck itself has become so unbelievably consistent that I think this is a massive change, and I'm very, very excited to see Amalia kicked out of the format. I think it's really going to change. Now, it really depends on whether or not they hit the other 2 decks, Phoenix and Vampires. Amalia is a step in the right direction, but let's see if we have anything else. Oh my goodness, let's go! Sorin, Imperious, Bloodlord. No more Vein Rippers on turn 3. That will have to be relegated. I mean, maybe it's good enough for Modern. It's probably good enough for Timeless. People play Dark Ritual in that format. But anyways, we do not have to deal with turn 3 Vein Ripper in Pioneer anymore. Now, I am so ecstatic to see these 2 changes, but I really, really hope that they do something to Phoenix. Now, they've said they don't want to ban Treasure Cruise in the past, but let's see if maybe they change their mind a little bit. No. Okay, so that's a good start. My really big worry here is that you've removed 2 of the 3 best decks in the format, but what about Phoenix? I mean, it's a really hard deck to attack because if they're dead set on not banning Treasure Cruise, then that's never going to happen. But even a consistency ban like Picklock, Prankster, maybe a Cantrip, and okay, that it's a good start, right? Thank you. Shout out to Watsy. It's a really good start, but I think there maybe needs to be potentially more action later down the road. We'll see what they say. I'm sure they'll address Phoenix in their discussion about it, but really good changes so far. W Banlist. Let's see what we have for Modern. We can all assume Nadu, that's going to happen, but is there anything else besides Nadu? Okay, I mean, yeah, shocker. This is, editor, you can like Photoshop shocked Pikachu face on me. Obvious. I don't think we need to go into discussion on why Nadu is removed from the format, so let's just move on. Now, again, I have talked about the One Ring before. I don't know if they're willing to pull the trigger on banning it right now, but I think it certainly could be a problem later down the road. But let's see if we have decided to do anything else. My guess is no. Oh, really? Okay. That's interesting. I mean, okay, so we kind of had this period of time where Mono Black was all the rage, right after the Pro Tour. Obviously, people were talking about Nadu, but Grief has been in the format for so long. It was a huge problem back when Rakdos Scam was the best deck. I'll be honest with you, Grief hasn't been that much of a problem over the past couple of months, but I think part of that is we're focusing too much on Nadu, and I think we'll see what they say in the discussion, but I'm assuming that they imagine that if they remove Nadu and don't do anything else, then maybe the grief decks become a problem again. And I certainly could see that. I just didn't think they were willing to pull that trigger, but I'm relatively happy. I mean, grief, the gameplay with grief is not super great. So I'm a big fan of that. So let's see if there's anything else. Okay. So nothing happened to the One Ring. Like I said, I kind of didn't think they were going to touch anything. I'll be honest with you. I didn't expect a grief ban. That is shocking to me. I think it is, like I said, I think it's good for gameplay. The games that involve turn one double grief are generally just not that fun and also not that interesting. So, Nadu, good ban. Grief, good ban. We'll discuss about the One Ring maybe at a later date. I will say, as far as Legacy is concerned, it's the format that I really don't play that much. I've heard a lot of people talking about Grief, so that's my expectation, but I probably won't have a ton to say about Legacy just because it's a format that I don't play that often. Yeah, I mean, I've heard people talking about Grief. That makes a lot of sense. I'm not surprised to see it here, but it's a format that I don't play as much. So if there's anything else that happens, there is not. Okay. So I think that was the expectation for Legacy. Let me know in the comments section down below if we have anybody that plays a ton of Legacy, because like I said, it's not really a format I engage with. But yeah, Grief, be gone. That card is that Grief should be deleted from Magic. Even if it's not, like I said, that much of a player in the modern format right now, if you make a huge shift and remove Nadu, I'm sure it will pick back up again. So this is almost like, this feels to me like a preemptive ban, which I kind of appreciate. Everything else, I think we can probably just kind of breeze through this. Ooh, well, never mind. Well, I mean, to be honest with you, again, this is all you guys in the comment section. I don't really play Vintage, so Urza Saga restricted, Vexing Bauble restricted. I don't know what that means for the format, but let me know in the comments. Good, bad, maybe? I don't know. We'll see. Anything else here? Alchemy, no changes. Explorer. Oh, right, because Explorer has to abide by the Pioneer ban list. Sure, okay, that makes sense. Historic, probably no changes. Timeless, no changes. Cool. Brawl, who cares? All right, well, there we have it. So the bans that we care about are these three formats right here. Amalia Soren in Pioneer, Nadu Grief in Modern, and Grief in Legacy. Good riddance to those cards. Like I said, I am a little scared about them not addressing Phoenix. I really want to get into the article, though, because I want to see if they mention Phoenix. And then as far as Modern is concerned, I think that we're probably going to have this conversation about the One Ring within, the next year or so. But again, I'm going to take the good with the bad, because Modern was horrendous, right? Nadu was just an absolute menace, and good riddance. So let's talk about and see what they say as far as their... Ooh, okay, hold on. All right, we have an important announcement here, an updated banned and restricted announcement cadence. Today we're going to start by addressing an issue we've had with the timing of our banned and restricted announcements. Remember, I made a video discussing the timing of it because it happened so strange. The timing of the last announcement was like a week before the Pro Tour, and they felt like they couldn't act because they had to wait until the next ban announcement, even though they knew they had a problem. So let's see what they say about that. The current timing tied BNR announcements to set releases, placing the announcement on the Monday prior to the start of Duskmoor and House of Horror previews. The goal in doing so was to make sure each set had proper context for evaluating new cards and to provide fewer points where decks would change. Which does make sense. They want to give the adequate time frame to see how the metagame adapts and adjusts. However, this timing did not take into account the timing of our competitive play seasons, namely regional championships. That is the exact point that I made in my video, where I think it's more important to tie the ban list announcement to the RCQs and RCs rather than set releases. This led to BNR announcements that occurred in the middle of competitive seasons. June 24th, they can occur the week of the Pro Tour. That's exactly what happened. This can make it difficult for players to have confidence in their deck selection for events they've planned for, both from a testing perspective and a logistical one. Exactly the points that we made in the last video. It is clear that the timing of the June 24th BNR announcement was poor, so much so that we notified the public ahead of time that we would not be making any changes to Modern. Remember that? There was an announcement right before the Pro Tour, and there was like a little buzz around Nadu, and everybody was like, are they going to do anything before the Pro Tour? And they actually had to tweet out, just to make sure that our pro players know we're not going to do anything, we have to make this kind of out of schedule tweet and say, yeah, we're not going to touch the ban list. So that does make a lot of sense. Moving forward, we will be aligning our BNR announcements to the RC and RCQ seasons. That's exactly what we want. This will allow us to make adjustments to our play environments to ensure the best experience possible for our competitive play pipeline, use the RC and RCQ season to gather data and observe the evolution of how each format absorbs each new release, fewer BNR announcements overall. To that end, our next announcement will be on December 16th, 2024. So that would be, I'm guessing that's right before the next RCQ season starts. Let me know in the comments. I know that there is the current RCQ season, which is Modern, and then the next RC is, at least for the US, in October. And I'm assuming December 16th is the start of the next RCQ season. Let me know in the comments down below. I think that's what it is. And I think it's standard, so probably no changes there. It is worth noting that we don't plan on changing the current standard BNR philosophy, meaning we still only want one window per year. Interesting. Okay, well that's kind of weird, right? So we only want one window per year, barring an emergency where we consider taking action in standard. So I wonder if that means if they're going to, like, let's assume for the sake of argument, they felt like, I'm just going to use a random card. This is not that I'm saying this card should be banned, but let's say Caretaker's Talent. Let's say data suggests that, okay, they've decided that Caretaker's Talent is a problem. Does that mean the only window they have to ban standard cards is the announcement that is tied to the standard RCQ season? Not sure. That's what I'm guessing. But in any case, let's take a look at the explanations of the format, which are written by Dan Musser. Shout out to Dan Musser. Great guy. Standard. We just experienced our first rotation of the new 3-year standard. Things look exciting. Yep, that is exactly my sentiment. Standard is fantastic. Probably the best format right now. Doesn't need any changes. Release of Bloomberg, long rotation for all the sets, giving rise to new strategies. Touching everything is going to standard these days. Point out just a couple examples. Yep. Domain, took advantage, lost those lands. Players still get most of the domain deck. Trying out Rakdos Lizards, give Vanlasher Cavern. While standard's going great, many of our other formats have been struggling. Okay, yeah, I mean, we don't need to divulge into standard that much because standard, great. Moving on. You know, that's all I have to say. Nothing but good things to say about standard. Pioneer, Amalia and Soren. All right. Over the past several months, we've been able to gather data and observe results from a full season of Pioneer Regional Championship qualifiers, as well as data from other tabletop events and various Moto leagues and challenges. 2 clear outliers that we'll be addressing today. So, interesting to me that they're only saying there's 2 clear outliers, because we kind of touched on this a little bit in one of my previous videos where the format it's a 3-deck format, not a 2-deck format, at least in my estimation. I think the play rate and metagame share of Phoenix is worth addressing, so I really hope they talk about that. Since Seth's Pro Tour win back in February, Vampires has been a growing force in the metagame. We've gradually seen the deck's metagame share grow over time. Problematic, yeah. I mean, I think the last video was, I think, over 37% of the metagame, which is just complete insanity, so it does make sense. Turn 3 Vein Ripper is so potent that many decks struggle to interact with it. Yeah, and I mean, that's the other issue too. Let's say that Vein Ripper was just a differently designed card and didn't have the ward cost of sacrifice a creature. We may be not having this conversation. It would be easier to kill with traditional removal spells, but it's not only the fact that turn 3, this massive threat, but it's also really hard to deal with, especially in a game 1 situation for so many different decks. Yep, and that's exactly what they say. Traditional removal needs to be backed up with a sacrificial creature for you to even target it. You're still facing... And that's the other thing, too. Even if you 3-for-1 yourself on the Vein Ripper, Soren still gets to stay in play. Lost 2 cards, lost some life. Yep. And that's only if you're insert battlefield presence. Exactly. Yep. And that's the other thing, too. They also have Thoughtseize Fatal Push, so good luck trying to beat that kind of core. 30% over the RSQ season. That's clear that the deck's existence is shrinking the diversity, which I agree. While it is fairly likely that Rakdos Vampires players will... And that's the other thing, too, right? This exact traditional Rakdos midrange deck. Exactly what I hinted on previously, where when Rakdos midrange was the best deck before Vein Ripper, nobody was really batting an eye. Everybody was kind of just like, okay, that's fine. So, yeah, good change. Turn 3 pressure event. Yep, exactly. Well, Soren has existed in Pioneer for quite a few years. Yeah, exactly. Soren has seen some playability, but it took Vein Ripper to go over the top, and that does make sense. Yep, that all makes sense. The Amalia deck is okay. So Amalia is one that we've had our eyes on for a while. Creature-based combo decks are something we believe adds positive texture to a format's metagame when reasonable. Unfortunately, this particular version of a creature combo has too many problems. Use Amalia, Walker in various ways to gain life. Let's see here. Players have found ways to give Walker indestructible, causing the game to result in a draw. And that, I think, is a huge part of this as well. Infinite number of times. Gameplay experience failure is not something our team caught during playtesting, and I'm glad they admit that. I'm very, very glad that they're willing to admit this. This is not ideal as a gameplay experience is not something our team caught during playtesting. That's kind of what we expected, right? When we saw this combo first burst onto the scene, there was a lot of chatter about did they actually realize that this was an interaction that could happen? Maybe they realized the combo was there. Maybe they saw Walker plus Amalia, but it's possible they didn't really consider, what happens if you skip the 20 power or you give the Walker indestructible. So it does make sense that they're willing to admit that, and I appreciate that. In the draw, the full package is quite resilient, being able to recur various pieces, return of the rank specialist. Yeah, it kind of has the Nadu problem where it's very fast combo, but also a ton of resilience built in with all the ways to get it back, hordes, Cocos, all that stuff. All that makes sense. Nothing else to say about that. Now, here's the important part. We considered other cards as well. Treasure Cruise and Fable the Mirror Breaker were discussed at length. Our team decided that while each of the following formats clearly needs a change, we wanted to take an approach that would allow us to make the most important changes necessary to each format without possibly going too far. We're confident each of the changes to the formats makes them more fun, but how much more fun? We'd like to observe this set of changes, see how each format evolves, and then decide if more changes are necessary in the next BNR announcement on December 16th. I don't know if I like that last paragraph. I feel like they should have specifically called out Arclight Phoenix, because if you go look at past ban announcements, they have called it out in the past. They've specifically announced Cruise and Phoenix when they banned Iteration and all this stuff. So I'm curious as to why they chose not to call out Phoenix this time as an archetype. It has been the best deck in Pioneer at several points of its iterations. So I'm very surprised that they didn't at least mention that deck. TLDR, I'm very happy that Soren and Amalia are gone, but I'm a little scared that maybe Phoenix is just going to take over. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about Pioneer, but that's kind of my initial assessment of this is they didn't touch my Phoenix deck, and that's what I'm playing in DC. Now, let's move on to Modern. So Nadu and Grief, again, we expected Nadu. Grief was a little bit of a surprise, so let's see what they say. As mentioned in the opening section, the timing of the previous BNR was poor. I believe it's important the players know when to expect changes. Stay committed to the announcement dates. Day leading up was simply too early and would have served us all better being a few weeks after. Okay, all that makes sense. Players knew we were likely to ban Nadu on the next opportunity, but they also knew that the best chance to win an event was likely by playing with Nadu. Yes. Yeah, it was a very, very poor experience. With the changes to the cadence of the BNR announcements, we would have likely targeted the end of July, engaging in current Modern RSQ season. Okay, and I think this is exactly why they're making the change to the timing as well, is it, for me, I mean, maybe I am speaking on behalf of myself because, I play RCQs, but I think that for people who participate in these competitive RSQ seasons, it's much better to attach a ban list to that particular event or season rather than the set itself, because if you attach it to the set itself, you're going to run into issues where maybe a deck isn't found in the first 2 weeks of its lifespan, and then a ban announcement happens, and then the next week we have another Nadu situation. We want to make sure that we have these announcements in place tying to the RSQ season, so I appreciate that. I can learn from the past and change our approach to the future. Yep, makes a lot of sense. Majors had written a few words about the origin of how Nadu came to be and why we're banning it today. Oh, okay. Let's take a look at this real quick. This is a long article. Okay, we might have to do this in a separate video, maybe just like specifically talking about Nadu. But the people watching this video are probably not surprised to hear that Nadu get banned. So we probably don't have to go into super in-depth in today's video. This is more of just like a live reaction to what's getting banned. So maybe I'll save that for a future video. Be on the lookout for that. I'm interested to see what they say about Grief here. For some time, Grief has been maligned as one of the least fun parts of competitive Modern events. I mean, is it really for some time? And correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like nobody's been talking about Grief, at least for the last month and a half. But again, maybe it's because too many people were talking about Nadu, and maybe we just kind of put the other problem aside and are focusing on this main problem. So, I guess that kind of makes sense. Starting the game down to 2 or 3 cards in the various 1 mana ways. Yep, having to mulligan is already painful, but yeah, mulliganing and then being double griefed. I mean, the game is just over right there. Even outside of mulligans, having a turn 1 answer to a 3 or 4 power menace creature after your opponent has taken away your best cards. Grief is not currently seeing as much play as it has in the past. It is still a format staple used by several decks. Necro, Goryo's, Living End, Rakdos, 1 mana cards to abuse Grief's manaless evoke interaction. In the interest of making the format more fun, we are banning Grief today. See, that's interesting because, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like a lot of past ban announcements haven't necessarily used that F word before, and I mean, I'm a big fan of it. A lot of times over the past where they specifically want to use data, right? And you can go back to a number of different ban lists where they have this philosophy where, we want to ban a card because it's X percentage of the metagame or because it has X percent win rate. And I appreciate that they're taking a deeper look. If you look at the win rates and play rates of Grief, it's kind of embarrassing compared to Nadu, but I sympathize with them saying that it's not fun because I'm sure that most of the people watching this can agree it's not that fun. And I'm glad that they're willing to admit this particular interaction with Grief, and kudos to them. I appreciate that. All right, here we go. So now I assume they're going to, talk about the One Ring. So we considered a few other cards, namely the Ring. While present in several decks, there is no clear Ring deck terrorizing Modern. Yeah, but the issue with that has to do with the fact that Nadu is the one that's terrorizing. So if you remove Nadu especially and Grief as well, I feel like we might run into some issues. And the other thing that I want to mention is the Ring is probably the single best card you can possibly put in any deck against Boros Energy. If what people assume is going to happens, which is energy is going to dominate, then a lot more decks are going to turn towards the One Ring because that is sort of the natural predator to the Boros Energy deck. So even if the play rate isn't as high as it is now, I can assure you it's likely going to go up if Energy's metagame share also goes up with the removal of Nadu. But we'll see how it plays out. Being a unique combination of protection and card advantage, it's a strong card. Ultimately, we decided not to act against the One Ring. The possible problems it may be causing for Modern just aren't as clear as Nadu and Grief, which I kind of agree with. I mean, the problem with the One Ring is it's not a card that kills you on the spot. It's a card that comes down. It is a massive card advantage engine, but it's not the actual win condition. I mean, I guess you could argue that maybe drawing 4 or 5 cards is more than enough to win a game, but it's really the other stuff that kills you. Once we see how the format evolves after this change, we will continue to observe and evaluate the health of Modern and see which future actions are necessary. Okay. Well, I'm glad that they called out the Ring as something they're monitoring because it's certainly a card that a lot of people have been talking about, and it's weird. A lot of the decks that are using it right now are basically Jeskai control, and then kind of the ones that are heavier removal like Mono Black and things like that. I mean, Boros has started to adopt it, so maybe that will continue to happen moving forward. On a more positive note, despite Nadu overshadowing much of the potential of what players can explore with the addition of MH3, we've seen a few non-Nadu cards and strategies find success. Energy and Eldrazi, Necrodominance is the namesake card, Psychic Frog, yep, what else will be discovered as the Looming Shadow of Nadu is removed. Okay, well, there you go. I know there were Legacy and Vintage bans, but again, I don't play those formats, so I don't really have the capability of commenting on those. So I apologize if you guys were here for Legacy stuff, but it's just not a format that I am knowledgeable enough to feel like I can offer insightful commentary. But yeah, I mean, I'm really happy with these changes. I think that Amalia Soren, good. I'm a little scared about Phoenix and Pioneer. And then as far as Modern is concerned, Nadu, good. Grief, shocking. Did not think that was going to happen. And then I'm a little skeptical of the One Ring. So as far as TLDR, I am happy with the changes, but I would like to have a very close, get some binoculars and watch out for Phoenix and Pioneer and the One Ring in Modern. This was awesome. I mean, this is better than I could have ever imagined. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think of this ban list. And until next time, see you later.